Hello, I'm Gina Connell. I'm CMO at law firm BP Collins. I'm here with three of our partners to chat about business resilience and what options are available. So with me today are...
Hi, I'm Chris Brazier and I focus on employment law.
Hi, I'm Matthew Brandis and I focus on dispute resolution.
And I'm Simon Deans, firm senior partner and a corporate and commercial lawyer.
Great, thank you everybody. Simon, can I start by asking you what commercial businesses need to consider at the moment?
Well, Gina, I think the first step is to make sure you secure your business. So protect cash flow, manage costs really tightly, use the support that's been made available. The government's made a number of options available for everyone: grants, furlough scheme, cheap loans, VAT and tax deferrals. You know, some of those may be useful to your business. Secondly, I think focus on the business that you can be doing at the moment. Have you got an opportunity to sell online more than you had done previously, maybe? And thirdly, keep an eye on the future. Start planning for what you're going to need.
Great, thank you, Simon. Chris, turning to you, furloughing has been one of the schemes that many businesses have embraced. There have been a few changes recently. What's the current situation?
So the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, to give it its full title, is essentially it's the salary contribution scheme that's there to assist employers paying wages during the pandemic. As you'd expect, there's been a very high take-up of the scheme. Initially, it was introduced for 3 months. It's been extended to run for a further month from now until the end of June. And as you say, it's been rapidly evolving since its inception. The guidance that's been released around the scheme has been evolving almost on a daily basis. There's still some issues that exist with the wording of the scheme and the guidance itself. And one of those is around holiday and holiday pay. We now have a bit of clarity that employees can take holiday and that if they do, they need to be paid full pay. But one of the areas that's still a little bit uncertain is around allocation of holiday. So can employers allocate holiday to their furloughed employees? And that's obviously an issue that will become of greater significance the longer this period of lockdown continues. Employers will continue to accrue annual leave. And when things return to some sort of normality, there's going to be a lot of employees with a lot of annual leave to take at a time when a business can least enable and allow that to happen. So if that's something that's causing you employers concern, they really should contact us to take some legal advice as to what they can do to sort of alleviate that.
Thanks, Chris. And Simon, just thinking about furloughing, does that have any impact on what businesses need to think about when they take out loans or, you know, their staff availability, etc.?
Well, I think the extension of the furlough scheme has been helpful in that it's given businesses more time in which to work out what to do next. You really don't want to be rushing into a decision to take a loan that's going to have a long-term impact on your business over a number of years. The banks are going to ask you to forecast what impact the COVID-19 is having on your business. And let's face it, that's really difficult to predict. So I think, you know, it has bought businesses more time and that helps all of us.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, loans are great. They're really helpful for businesses potentially. But, you know, we've seen a lot in the press about cash flow and businesses being concerned that their customers are going to stop paying. What's the situation and what advice would you give to people?
Well, that's an understandable concern. Poor cash flow can sink even good businesses, as we know. How vulnerable your business is will, of course, depend on its client base. However, I recommend keeping a close contact with your customers. If you traditionally leave everything to your accounts team to manage your cash flow, you may wish to be more involved in that process and check what their procedures are and perhaps change them if necessary. We are, of course, in a digital age and we rely on emails to a greater or lesser degree, but there's nothing quite like phoning your customers to find out what their position is, to double check they're paying their bills on time, try and chase them just before the payment's due, and then you're more likely to get paid on time. If that doesn't work, of course, you can do a letter for action, and that can do wonders in getting paid. If it's a business-to-business debt, you can also claim a late payment fee and your reasonable costs.
Great, thank you. Simon, we've covered some areas that show that there's a bit of a minefield for directors to navigate at the moment in terms of their businesses. What are directors' duties, and how can people ensure they're making the right decisions?
Well, I think the key point at the moment, and what's been in the news, is that the government relaxed the rules on wrongful trading for 3 months through to the end of July. I mean, that's helpful on the face of it. So, if you're worried that your business might be insolvent and ordinarily you would then need to stop trading, you potentially have the opportunity now to carry on during that period without sort of fear of prosecution. But your director's duties still apply. And I think directors need to keep thinking longer term. Any sort of deferral of tax or any other payments that you need to make, any loans you take out, you still need to be thinking now about how you're going to repay those in future. You need to have a plan. You can't just sort of sit there and think, well, I'm fine for the next 3 months. I can kind of carry on regardless. All those normal duties will still apply to you. And I think, lawyers would say this, but, the best advice is any advice you take, try to get it in writing, or at least make a note of what you're being advised to do. And also make notes of the decisions that you're taking as you go along. Because if later there's any sort of investigation into decisions that you took, you can show the clear evidence of the thought process that you went through, and that will help you if you ever had to defend any sort of claim against you breaching your duties. Okay.
Chris, turning back to you, at the moment it's a stressful time for many. What are the employers' sort of responsibilities towards employees, both their physical and their mental well-being?
Yes, it's a really stressful time for employees at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. So the basic legal position is that all employers owe a duty of care to their employees. So that applies regardless of the company where they're working. There's a lot of people working at home at the moment. There's a lot of people who are still going to work. And if they are able to work from home, they should absolutely be working from home, but not everybody can. And where those people are required to go to the normal place of work, there are obviously social distancing measures in place, and employers must be following the government guidance in relation to this to ensure they're complying with their duty of care. I think the bigger issue is obviously the mental well-being for a lot of employees. There's a lot of concern about what this pandemic means for them. Some people have health issues, health concerns, and generally it's just created a high level of concern across workforces. Those employees who are furloughed in particular, it's important that employers keep close contact with those employees who are furloughed. It's difficult because they're currently not able to work. They're strictly not able to work under the furloughing scheme. We've had employers who've set up training programs to keep people active during the furlough period. And indeed, setting up social events and contact sessions is really important.
Okay. And Matthew, we've talked about a number of areas around businesses. Lots of businesses are having challenges with contracts and contract disputes at the moment. Either events are cancelled or things are put on hold. Are the courts operating, and what other options have businesses got available to them?
I'm pleased to say that at this stage the courts still are operating, but there are far fewer of them than there used to be. They're focusing very much on the most important cases, such as those involving children, but they are still handling claims. So although the court process has slowed down quite dramatically, recently I've been able to obtain judgment in default for a client and also issue proceedings. So even though things are a bit slower, they are still operating, and therefore there's no reason not to continue using the court process.
Yeah, and are you finding that you've got many sort of disputes that you're able to settle without needing to take court action? Are people?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of cases do settle anyway. The statistics tend to change from one year to the next, but my experience is that at least 90% of cases do settle. I've seen no real difference at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Simon, coming back to you, what are the 3 key things directors and businesses should be planning for now to help them springboard out of the lockdown when the opportunity arises?
Well, I think the first one refers back to a point Chris was making. We're unlikely to have a sort of a clear end to lockdown. It's likely to be a gradual process. It'll be released in stages, and I think what you need to do is work out how can your business operate in the stages that may come. So, while still socially distancing, could you run shifts? Could you have some people working at home, some in the office, and maybe alternate them? There's a lot of thinking and planning that you can do around that, so that you're ready as and when the announcement's made, particularly as government currently isn't keen to give us advance warning of what it expects to form the exit plan. I think secondly is planning for what your customers are likely to need. My feeling is that we're not immediately going to go back to normal. There's lots of changes being made very, very quickly, and what customers and clients need is perhaps going to be a little bit different in future than it has been. So, is there any thinking you can do around that? How can you plan for it? And what are you going to need in your business to be able to deliver what customers want to buy? And thirdly, I think it's really important to communicate those plans clearly to your staff, so that they know what to expect and also what's expected of them. At a time when we're perhaps not seeing each other as regularly as we normally would, it's important to keep in touch and make sure everybody understands their role really clearly.
Okay, thank you. Good advice. So thank you everyone for all your insights. To the viewer, if you found this interesting and you would like to ask further questions, please look us up at bpcollins.co.uk, where you can connect directly with Simon and Chris and Matthew. So all that remains is for me to say goodbye from me and goodbye from the team. So team.
Thank you.
Thank you.